that cold one in the background tempting the rest of us. So as also is in keeping with our tradition during this time of COVID-19, we have reports to bring to you from the health department and also from our vaccination coordination team. So to kick things off, Cindy Farr, our incident commander for our COVID-19 incident command team, would you like to fill us in?
Hi, thanks, Dave. So the pandemic does continue to roll on. We've now been in this for over a year. We are starting to see a greater vaccine saturation in our county. So I'll give you those numbers. Right now, what we know is that in Missoula County, we've given 50,330 doses of vaccine. The state map is showing 17,994 people fully vaccinated, but we actually think that that fully vaccinated number is wrong. And our data people are working with the state to try and fix that. We actually have higher than that. We are continuing to see the spread of COVID-19 in our county. We were holding really well, having really low cases, 10 to 15 per day for a long time, for a couple months. Now that number has popped up and we're starting to see closer to 20 to 25 cases a day. And so our average daily new cases per 100,000 people was holding at around 11, and now it's popped up to 18. And so with that, in addition to you may have seen the news today that we had 2 variant cases identified in Missoula County, and they were the variants that are coming out of California. This is pretty concerning to us in public health, and so we're just keeping a really close eye on that, and it's feeling a little bit like a race to see if we can get enough people vaccinated fast enough that this doesn't turn into another spike. So so that's pretty much what I have right now. And oh, the other concerning thing that we're seeing is that we've got let's see, 13 people hospitalized in Missoula County, and actually a significant portion of the Missoula County residents that are hospitalized in Missoula County are in their 20s. And so we're definitely seeing more severe disease in younger folks, and we're starting to see really an increase in the number of close contacts that people have that are testing positive for COVID. So I will leave it there and open it up for any questions you guys might have.
Any questions for Cindy, knowing that we're going to talk about vaccination specific items here in just a second?
Cindy, could I ask you a question? Oh, I should have raised my hand. I'm sorry.
No.
So thanks, Dave. Can you describe, maybe make sure, can everybody be muted? Thanks. So Cindy, could you describe how this variant is different? I don't mean like on a molecular level, but what happens if a person, is this more contagious, more dangerous? Like what is it about this variant that is worthy of note?
So this variant is both more contagious and also more likely to cause severe disease. So that's the key differences between this particular variant and the original strain of COVID-19 that we have seen circulating. We suspect that there are likely other variant strains that are circulating in Missoula County, but because the state has such a limited availability to be able to run testing for variants, then it's really a small sampling of our cases that are getting tested for variants. So while it's newsworthy and it's new news that we are now seeing variants in Missoula County, it's not really surprising to us, and we actually suspect there's probably more of it in our county than what we know about. And the differences between the different variant strains is that we've just got a few that we know are particularly concerning because of their ability to spread more easily and also because of the more severe disease. And then there's a few of the other ones that are like, okay, well, it's very similar to what we would expect to see in the regular strain of COVID.
Thanks, Cindy. Kevin Nolan from Lolo.
Hey, Cindy, how are you doing? Quick question for you. Reading the, like as the restrictions are starting to open up with restaurants and other businesses having more capacity, this is, and you can just not answer this question if you don't want to, but for University of Montana Grizzly football, I see that there's 5,000 fans that'll be allowed. How was that formulated compared to, say, a grocery store or a restaurant or something like that, as far as percentages of capacities?
Yeah, so just to address the football question, I am a little bit out of the loop as far as like plan reviews and which ones have been reviewed at this point and which ones haven't, because that's a little farther in the weeds from where I'm operating. But my understanding is that while the Board of Health is adopting they have adopted a new guidance if we meet certain criteria, which is we keep our 7-day case average below 25 and that we have 600 per 1,000 people vaccinated. Then the new guidance would go into place. And what that would mean is that only people that are going to have events that are going to have more than 1,000 people need to consult with the health department to come up with a plan so that they can actually like hold that event and keep everyone safe and protected. And at the same time, when that plan goes into place, then capacity limits also get lifted. And so so it is fair across the board. I just don't want you to think that we're like treating businesses any differently than we would be treating events. If we all look at all of it as a whole and try to figure out how to best provide guidance for each individual type of setting.
Good. Yeah, that makes it very easy to explain to other people. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Cindy? All right. Well, we can come back. Hang tough, Cindy. There might be some more questions for you. So Nick Holloway with our vaccination coordination team. Do you want to fill us in, Nick?
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner. Good evening, everyone. The first news I have is the news of the day. We will be moving into a new phase starting Sunday. All residents 16 and older will be eligible to get vaccinated. Not all vaccines are appropriate for people 16 and older. As we know, some are for 18 and older, but all residents 16 and older as of Sunday. And so we are now scheduling folks for some clinics on Sunday where they can schedule anybody in that category. That's moving out of the 1B plus. What the team has been doing all throughout is supporting various clinics, mass vaccination clinics, at Lucky's and the Adams Center through the University of Montana and the Fairgrounds through Partnership Health. Those are our three main mass vaccination clinics. We support them with logistics and planning and information and operations. And how we normally operate, the health department, I think, stood up by themselves a little more. They were they did a good job and they didn't need quite as much support as the other clinics. But how we operate is we go in, we find what we think is an appropriate place, and then we sort of set the flow up and help them with all the different positions within the clinic. We also support pharmacies and other categories such as the All Nations Clinic and veterans and clinics like Blue Mountain and Western Montana Clinic. And how we support them is through weekly vaccination orders, and if they're part of the state pipeline, we distribute vaccines to whomever needs it, given the amount of vaccine we have. Some might be on a second dose week, so they might not get any new distributions from us, and others might be on that first dose part of the cycle, so they might get it, and that's how we support them. We also hold weekly cooperator calls where we bring all these groups together and we find out how they're doing, what their concerns are, and really try and get on the same page with everybody and find out if we need to do any follow-up after these calls. They've been a really good way to keep in touch with people. We also do a weekly joint information center call, and this is with all the communications folks for a lot of these clinics and for law enforcement. and for some other cooperators around town. And this is just to make sure that we are sharing information and we're staying consistent with our messaging and we're supporting with one another with our messaging. So, for example, the vaccine coordination team has created a lot of graphics and some handouts. We created recently a handout to combat vaccine hesitancy that people can get are handed when they're leaving most of the clinics, that ask people to tell their friends and family why they chose to get vaccinated and things like that, and to share it on social media if they're so inclined. And so we've, through the Joint Information Center, we've been able to share that information and all be on the same page when it comes to messaging that out and get some of those hard copies to folks for their clinics. Finally, we do individual check-ins. Each section, I'm the information officer for the vaccine coordination team, so I'll talk about my section, but each section has their own individual check-ins. I check in with Missoula Aging Services on a weekly basis and make sure we're meeting their needs and finding out what their expectations are, and making sure that the information that their call center gets out is consistent with what we're talking about, and that's been very, very nice to be on the same page. All this actually comes about through good relationships built during blue sky days that we're now utilizing during a disaster. The other weekly check-in, a couple times a week actually, I have is with our Access and Functional Needs group, a subcommittee out of our LEPC, our Local Emergency Planning Committee, and they really inform in a lot of ways how we operate and how we communicate. We need to be accessible. We need to, everybody matters. We're vaccinating the whole community, not just people that can get there easily. So we need to make sure that we're talking to the whole community in a way that they can take the message. As far as messaging, right now, we are sort of in between stages. We're at the very end of 1B plus, going into that all residents over 16 phase, and so we're trying to do evergreen type messaging that will carry us through. And the main thing right now, and probably going forward for a while, is to turn that vaccine hesitation that some people may have into vaccine acceptance. We're not necessarily reaching out to the folks that are a hard no on getting vaccines, but we do know that there is a pretty good group of folks in between the hard yeses and the hard no's who are sort of in that gray area, the wait and see folks, and we're trying to drive some of their behaviors and getting them vaccinated, because we all want to end this thing and get to that herd immunity place. Don't like hearing about the variants out there. That's a difficult thing to deal with, but we're definitely all going to have to see where that goes and deal with it. But we are working to combat vaccine hesitation. Recently at a clinic, we filmed Monty, and we've got a PSA coming out with Monty, showing that vaccinations are not a difficult thing to do once you get down there. He's walking through all the stations and doing what Monty does, talking to people and bouncing around. Well, he doesn't really talk, but he does pretty good hand gestures. The other thing that I really like what we're doing is sort of some crowdsourcing of messaging. So we have created a selfie station at some of the clinics where folks can take a selfie and post it wherever they want afterwards. We've created a Facebook profile frame saying that folks got vaccinated, and that previously mentioned flyer has a lot of encouragement for folks to talk to friends and family and help them get vaccinated, tell them why they got vaccinated, and encourage them to post on social media if they're inclined as to those things as well. Not wanting to raise any arguments, but just trying to help get people on the same track as we'd like to see them. One last thing I'll talk about is orphan doses. Those are second doses of the 2-dose vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer. And when a second dose does not get used, we call that an orphan dose. And so when we get first doses, they're automatically followed by second doses at the appropriate time down the road. So what we can't really do with these orphan doses is give them out as second doses because first doses, because there won't be a following dose for them. So we have to find homes for these second doses, and we're collecting names from folks at our call center and trying to match them up with doses that are at clinics around town and around the county. And we do that during our cooperators call. We tell folks about that. And so that's how we handle that. One piece of messaging that we are not doing is telling folks that widely and loudly all over the place, because we definitely do not want people to think that it's a good option not to go to your scheduled second dose. It's really important to make it to that scheduled second dose that you get at the time of your first dose, so that everything goes smoothly down the line, because there's a lot of downstream effects when that doesn't occur. So those are some, but probably not all of the things we're doing. I'll leave it at that and call that end of report for the moment, and stand for questions if anybody has any.
Thanks, Nick. Any questions for either Nick or Cindy?
Yeah, how many orphan doses are you seeing, Nick?
Well, I can report on the number of people that have called in. We have about 39 folks looking for orphan doses right now. The clinics are pretty good about now. It wasn't always this way, but now they're pretty good about not drawing up vials until they're needed. So each vial of Pfizer, I believe, holds about 10, sometimes 11 doses. I may have my vaccines mixed up, but they all hold a certain amount of doses. And so clinics are pretty good about not drawing up all their doses beforehand. So we're seeing less available, and we do have a list of about 39 right now. Of course, I suspect there's a lot more than that in the community that have not told us, but yeah, that's where we are right now. I think we'll probably be able to clean out a lot of that towards the end of the next phase. And also the good news is recently it came out, previous to this recent guidance, after 42 days, folks would have to restart that series if they didn't get that second dose within 42 days of when it was due. Now, we can just give them that second dose at any time and the series is done. So that's a pretty big weight off of our shoulders there.
Thanks. Other questions? And there are a few folks who are on the phone that I muted because of some background noise. So if you want to unmute yourself and you're on the phone, hit *6 to do so. Otherwise, please use the raise hand function in Teams if you're on a computer. Any questions for Nick or Cindy?
I just got a text here from a friend asking, are you guys seeing second cases of COVID in the community? It's like, so folks who had it in October, are they getting it a second time?
Cindy?
Yeah, we have seen about, I want to say somewhere around 15 reinfections from people who have been infected in the past and are now getting it again. We definitely are keeping an eye on that number and trying to figure out if there's any patterns, like anything in particular, like is it in a certain age group or in a certain type of setting. But really what we're finding is it's everything from toddlers to elderly folks, and there's just really no real pattern emerging. We do know that it's typically the reinfections are occurring about 5 months after, 4 to 5 months after the initial infection, sometimes a little longer, but that's the most common time frame is about 5 months. So, but yeah, we're definitely seeing that.
Wow, that is a big bummer if you get it twice, for sure. Jeez. Bert Caldwell.
Yeah, I got one for Nick. Last month we talked about possibility of mobile vaccinations, taking a van or whatever and going somewhere with vaccinations and all, and I kind of volunteered to help with that. I was wondering where that is and if we're still planning to do it.
I think, Bert, that is going to be something that occurs. We don't have anything solid there yet. I believe we're going to try and do some of that at the pre-established max vaccination clinics. And probably some of the outlying communities like Sealy Lake again as well, and in Frenchtown. But here in Missoula, I think we have some good spots that people are familiar with. And while nothing's planned yet, I think you can certainly look forward to that in the future. We do that on an individual basis now. When people sign up for schedule a vaccination, they can ask for a reasonable accommodation if they have an access or functional need that makes it really difficult for them to get inside the building. And with those kind of folks, we're happy to go out to their cars and vaccinate them while they're in their cars.
Well, if you need it, I can provide transportation.
Thanks.
Oh, while it's my turn, okay, one other short thing. Kevin Nolan had a superb question this morning, considering how the new applicant for health department bridges the gap between Democrats and Republicans, and we all know there's a gap there. And I just wanted to compliment him on that. Sorry.
Any other questions from folks out there for Cindy or Nick? All right. Well, thanks as always, Cindy and Nick, and we look forward to having you or one of your colleagues back for next month's meeting. With nothing but good news to report for us, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You bet. Thank you. All right. So we are going to dive in just for a few minutes into a topic that we delayed from last month due to our packed agenda. We had a request to talk a little bit about the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. And so that is what I will endeavor to do right now. And let me see if I can queue up a few slides here. So for those of you who are wondering, up until 1979, we had passenger rail service right here through Missoula County by way of the North Coast Hiawatha. That was done away with in 1979. We still have the Empire Builder along northern Montana, along the High Line. But for over 4 decades, there have been attempts by passionate individuals or advocacy groups to try to get back passenger rail service. Trying the same thing and expecting different results has not gotten the job done. So Missoula County over the last year has spearheaded an effort to try something different and expect different results. What we discovered is that on the books here in Montana is a law that allows counties and only counties to establish regional rail authorities. And that is exactly what we have availed ourselves of over the past year by rounding up counties who are interested across the state of Montana, across the southern tier of Montana. And we, as of November, have achieved 12 counties adopting a joint resolution to establish the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority, spanning the entire breadth of the state from Sanders County to Webo County, 600 miles across. The goal here is to, in the spirit of doing something different, create that governance structure, that institutional framework to move this initiative forward that we have previously been lacking when we simply have folks who might be passionate about the initiative, but that's about as far as it goes. The Rail Authority is a subdivision of state government. It's a bona fide independent jurisdiction, not unlike a fire district or an airport authority, perhaps, although this one is arguably the geographically largest such district in the entire state of Montana and the first one in the history of Montana. The goal is not to just create passenger rail service between cities within Montana, but to truly make this a regional system that would connect you to Chicago to the east and Portland or Seattle to the west. And also we are looking at the possibility of reestablishing service from Salt Lake City up to Butte and from Denver up to Billings and to points beyond. And those routes also once existed at one point in time, unbeknownst to many folks. A map that many of you should be familiar with. We still have a few gaps to fill in, but I'm thankful to report that as of today, in addition to the counties that are in green that have already joined the authority, we recently received word from Carbon County down near Red Lodge that they will be joining the authority. Stillwater County, just to the northwest of Carbon County, also is interested. And next week, Lewis and Clark County, the home to our state seat of state government in Helena, will be having a public hearing to consider joining the authority. So really quickly, why is this important? Well, there's three main reasons why many of us are embracing passenger rail as what we believe is a transformational project for the state and the region. One of which is from a sustainability standpoint. Rail is a much more sustainable and environmentally sensitive mode of transportation than either air transportation or moving folks over our highway system. It's also an opportunity to create some better equity when it comes to transportation, serving groups who might otherwise have a difficult time traveling, either due to cost or because simply if you're mobility impaired or otherwise disabled, you might not be able to drive, you might not be able to fly, but you might very well be able to ride on a train. From an economic standpoint, estimates along the High Line with the Empire Builder are approximately $37 million, as you can see from this chart, of economic benefit come into the state of Montana by way of the builder. Over 300 million accrued in economic benefits from Chicago clear to the West Coast, in Seattle and Portland. We can only expect that in the most populous region of Montana, the southern portion of the state, next to one of our nation's most iconic national parks, Yellowstone, that we would see at least as much or likely an exponentially greater economic benefit and gain for the state than you do along the High Line. So at the end of the day, we are looking to create a safe, reliable, and affordable intercity long-distance passenger rail service for the state of Montana. We are off and running as of January this year. We convened the first board of directors meeting of the authority. I am serving as the authority's chairperson, the first chair of the authority. We have other officers serving from clear over in Dawson County, who's our vice chair, to right over here are one of our next door neighbors, Sanders County, their representative is the finance director, finance committee chair for the authority, and it's garnered about as much positive feedback and support as any initiative that I've worked on in my career in elected service. And I think the bigger story in all of this is maybe not so much rail, but it's the fact that we pulled together 12 extremely diverse, economically diverse, politically, ideologically, geographically diverse counties, from some of our smallest rural counties to some of our largest urban centers, to work on an initiative. And the take-home message for me is that in this time of extreme and bitter political divisiveness in this country, it's still time, and there's still an opportunity to work together on things and actually accomplish some big, bold efforts. So with that, I would entertain, are there any questions that folks might have about this? And I will close out of this. Tom Browder.
Hey, Dave. So as someone who many years ago rode Northern Pacific passenger trains along that route, I think it's an awesome idea. Since that track now is really Montana Rail Link, if you engage with them as, I mean, obviously you're going to have to share the track with freight trains and a lot of scheduling. It seems like it might be in their best interest not to, I mean, I don't know how you put an economic cost on sharing the rails with the passenger authority, but if they became kind of a sponsor of it, is there any talk about that?
They will not be a sponsor of it, nor will any of the host railroads. BNSF, Montana Rail Link, Union Pacific, across the nation are generally neutral when it comes to passenger rail. They don't want to see it degrade their freight operations, but they're also, you're not going to see them out at the tip of the spear as proponents. Their main bailiwick and where they make their money is freight. And so, yes, to answer your question directly, yes, we've engaged Montana Rail Link, Union Pacific, and Burlington Northern Santa Fe from the very get-go, and will continue to do so in the future. Any system that ends up getting implemented will most likely have a partner by way of Amtrak, and Amtrak by statute, by federal statute and law, has priority, and they can run their trains on any of the host railroads that we're talking about here in the state of Montana. But we look forward to partnering with the host railroads to figure out next steps, to identify what the infrastructure needs will be, because the goal is not to simply shoehorn in additional trains on the system that we have now without any upgrades. There will absolutely need to be additional sidings, double tracking that is implemented in order to accommodate the free movement of both freight and passenger trains.
Great, thanks, Dave.
You bet. Any other questions? Lisa Thomas.
There we go. I was going to ask about a depot in Missoula. I know we've had a few, and what this might mean for specifically Missoula in having a train stop here, and what that could look like.
Thanks, Lisa. It's a little bit early to determine exactly how that will play out, and we are no different than any other community along the alignment, from whether it's Helena, Bozeman, Glendive, Thompson Falls, Plains, any place that once saw a passenger rail stop or a station. Likely those are, over the past 42 years, have been repurposed for other businesses, other uses. In some cases, they've fallen into disrepair and are not necessarily being used at all. In other cases, they're just gone and won't be available. So in the year 2021, as we are engaging in the feasibility studies to look at what this might take, we're wanting to be as creative as possible. I think many folks would love to see that beautiful station at the north end of Higgins Avenue put back into use and adaptively reused as a station as it once was in the past. Whether or not that is going to be possible or not, or whether it might make more sense to have an intermodal sort of facility near the airport to better provide the needs of folks in this era, who knows? All options are on the table, though.
I was noticing on the charts that Idaho had only one city or town with a stake in the northern rail line, and Sandpoint, but the state of Idaho still gets $2.5 million just from the one stop. So that means cities in Montana can each think about that impact. It gives you a good idea of what this can bring to a town, if that's what it's bringing to Sandpoint. So.
Well, and before we go to Josh, one of the interesting things as far as what this will bring to the region, it's been remarkable the national attention this effort has gained. We were featured recently, about a month ago, in the New York Times. I was reached out to by a news agency in, of all places, Portugal, and so we were featured in a podcast internationally. This has really captured the imagination of folks around the country, I think partially because of the iconic landscape that we have here in the West that captures people's imaginations, but also that broader story that I mentioned, that even beyond rail, we are demonstrating as we speak the ability for local government to work together in this very divisive climate that we're in and accomplish something positive, which it's always nice to talk about something positive as we're in the midst of a pandemic. Commissioner Slotnick.
There you go. Sorry, I just wanted to draw your attention to a question that popped up in the chat for you.
Could you read it for me, please?
I was just about to do that for you.
Oh, okay.
It says, Dave, what is your best estimate for when a service might begin?
Oh, I love that question. Not soon enough, I can tell you that. I mean, in a perfect world, an aggressive schedule would be in the next 5 years, but that's going to depend on, at least partially, what the nature of federal infrastructure package might be coming down the pike. We've been at this for 42 years and have not gotten the job done. I do not want to wait another 42 years. So I've been saying, let's go aggressive. Let's see if we can get this done in the next 5 years. That's the goal.
And were you saying there's a surface transportation bill coming up that might provide some help?
Absolutely. Every 5 years at the federal level, there is what's called the Surface Transportation Bill. It authorizes, sets out a work plan for the next 5 years for things such as passenger rail. And so we are working hard right now to do a couple things. One, to try to get into that bill authorization to create a multi-state rail commission in our region that would recognize that the sort of project we're talking about crosses state lines. So even though it's important that we have this in-state rail authority, something bigger in terms of governance structure is important, but also directly as it relates to funding, we will be seeking some significant federal support to conduct those feasibility studies, perhaps even preliminary engineering and socioeconomic studies to go along with this initiative. Rick Hall.
Just a quick question. I see there's a donate button at the side. Is it a 501c3?
It is not, but it is a government entity which also is able to take donations. So we are open for business. Hit that donate button.
To do that, I take it.
I'm sorry, what was that, Rick?
And we should maybe encourage people to do that?
Well, absolutely. So we are seeking funding and support in all manner, and that is one way to do so. County governments, municipal governments are certainly encouraged to help out. Missoula County has been chipping in significantly, not only by way of financial help to get some seed money rolling, but also by way of in-kind services. But private donations are also welcome. Thanks, Rick, for the question. We'll take one more question before we need to move on. We've got some other great things on the agenda here. Okay, well, if anything comes to mind after the fact, feel free to reach out to me personally or go to bigskyrail.org and learn more about the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. All right, well, thanks everyone for that. Next on the agenda, Missoula Economic Partnership with Grant Keir and Nicole Rush.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. And thanks everybody for letting us join you tonight. We appreciate the invitation to come and share a little bit. The commissioners invited us to come and talk a little bit about the Missoula Economic Partnership, maybe a reintroduction for those who know a little bit about us, an introduction for those who don't, speak a little bit about some of the things we're doing now, and also we have a few ways that you could really help us, I think, be more helpful and more impactful in your community. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. So my name is Grant Keir. I'm the president and CEO of MEP, the Missoula Economic Partnership. For those of you who aren't familiar with the organization, we were founded in 2010 as a response to the Great Recession. The leaders of the community, county commissioners, mayor, CEOs of some of our bigger businesses and institutions got together and said we really need to focus on how we more strategically build our economy, and more importantly, how do we start creating more sustainable and resilient high-paying jobs in our community. So we've been operating for 10 years. Our typical model is every 5 years or so, we sort of reassess the state of the community and our goals and our practices, and kind of retool based on a new strategic plan going forward. As an entity, we sort of focus on several key areas right now. We provide what we call direct business support, where we go in and help individual businesses who are seeking to grow or get started in our communities. We also do what's called business attraction, where if a business is interested in moving to Montana somewhere and we want to advocate for Missoula County as a landing point, or if there are businesses we know who are looking across the country for a place to land and we think they're a well-suited business to our community, we'll be sort of the leading entity in recruiting that company to come and land and set up shop in Missoula. The other area that we're working on right now pretty aggressively is around workforce development. And so really trying to understand the needs of our employers in our communities across the county, and also understand the capacity of our educational providers and the relationships between those to really streamline how quickly we can get people to see where employment opportunities exist and how they can either apply those skills that they have to those opportunities that exist, or get reskilled in ways that will allow them to be employed quickly. And the last area we're focused on right now is really helping companies and communities understand how to redevelop challenging real estate opportunities. And we're really focused there on a critical and core challenge across our county and certainly here in our city, which is fundamentally about the sort of cost of housing relative to wages. And so while we're working to raise wages, we also are really trying to support the expedited development of housing that our workforce can afford and live in. We really think that down the road, that's going to be a critical factor for making sure that the companies that we want to keep and stay growing here are able to do that in place and not have to leave and go somewhere else. What I'd like to do now is give Nicole Rush a quick chance to talk more specifically about the business support we provide. And the reason we want to introduce this to you specifically is that we really could use your help in two ways. One, you could be kind of eyes and ears on the ground, let people know who we are, but also let us know if you know of companies who may be a good fit for our help. A lot of folks don't know that this help is out there, and we'd love to make sure that they know we're here and that we identify who they are so we can help. And then when Nicole's done, I'll talk a little bit more about a bigger scale project that we're working on over the following year and another way you can get involved in helping with that process. So I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Thanks, Grant. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Rush. I'm the Business Initiatives Director for Missoula Economic Partnership. I, along with my colleague, Julie Lacey, who couldn't be here tonight, we together meet with businesses throughout the county to connect them to resources to help with expansion, or if they're struggling, avoid closure. As Grant mentioned, we also meet with businesses who are interested in relocating to Missoula. So we meet with a lot of businesses. Our goal in these meetings is just to understand what they need and connect them with resources either that we have within MEP or that our partners in sort of the economic development world may be able to offer, as well as state and federal resources through like the Montana Department of Commerce, Montana Department of Labor, USDA, and other federal agencies. So when we sit down and meet with a business, we try to understand, what are if they're looking at expanding, in what ways are they looking to expand? Are they looking to, maybe build a new facility? Are they adding jobs? Do they have a need to train their workforce? Are they seeking business planning help for like marketing planning or other sorts of help? And then, so we'll have a conversation with them, and then we can connect them to different resources that are available locally and at the state and federal level. I think we're especially known for grant resources through the Montana Department of Commerce. There's a variety of grants available to support businesses that are creating higher wage jobs, who are training their workforce, so investing in employee training. And as I mentioned, for business planning, both for like new facilities or marketing assistance. Some of the companies that we've helped recently in Missoula County are Botany Soap out in Bonner. They are a soap manufacturer and have created about 9 new jobs over this past year. So we helped them get a job creation grant through the Department of Commerce to support that expansion. And then another local business that we've helped recently is Diversified Plastics in the city of Missoula out on North Reserve. They are doing a facilities expansion, building onto their existing facilities. So we connected them with a grant to support the engineering and architecture planning. So that's an example of the type of resources we provide. My colleague Julie Lacey maintains kind of a a database of, upcoming real estate that may be coming available. So we like to understand, if a business is looking at relocating or opening a new facility, we can, we might be able to connect them with new locations, be aware of new spaces that are coming available. We also, maintain relations with all our local banks and loan and investment opportunities as well. And then over the past year during COVID-19, we've been a COVID resource as well for the state and federal COVID business resources. So, and all that information is still out there. If any business is still looking to access like PPP loans or other COVID related support, our website has those resources, and Julie and I try to maintain a knowledge of what's available and what's out there. So, if you know of a growing business that's looking to expand or a business that's struggling and might need our help, we'd love to meet with them. I'll drop our email in the chat, and our website is missoulapartnership.org. And I'll turn it back to you, Grant.
Thanks. One correction is missoulapartnership.com. That's okay. I do that all the time. But it's a good segue to just note. So we are a partner to the county and reflect sort of the commissioner's commitment to support our business community. But we are a private nonprofit, and so the benefit of that that I think you can introduce to some of your rural business partners and community members is that there's a level of confidentiality that we're able to maintain in that context, especially around sensitive information, sensitive trade secrets or business information that folks might not otherwise be comfortable sharing in a public setting as they start these conversations. So that might be helpful to let folks know. Nicole talked a little bit about our work on COVID. It was a great update earlier, and we're thrilled that vaccines are starting to roll out. I guess one plug I would give on behalf of our business community, and especially those folks who survive on recreation and tourism dollars in the summers, is anything you can do to reiterate to your community members how important it is to keep our numbers low right now. We had a great summer last year in Montana, in part because we had such relatively low case counts relative to other parts of the state and country. And I think it's a huge competitive advantage to us going into this summer if we can do the same thing. So it's a great rallying cry for people to desire to help our businesses by really keeping our case counts down. But we're thrilled also to just see a light at the end of the tunnel. And we really feel like we're seeing that in conversations with our business community. We're seeing companies start to hire again. And as the lead entity, as having that sort of stature bestowed upon us by the commissioners to help kind of coordinate COVID relief efforts, we're now just about to embark upon a several months, probably all through the summer, process of developing a longer range strategic plan that will focus on how we really tackle COVID economic recovery and also build a more resilient economy for our whole county for years to come. And so we're really going to be starting in the next probably 3 or 4 weeks here, a concerted effort to reach out to partners across the county, industry leaders, experts in different fields and industries, to develop a comprehensive plan that will cover everything from infrastructure investment to real estate development to educational partnerships and workforce development to the ways that we support our business communities going forward. In order to do that well and effectively, we seek not to reinvent the wheel. We have a lot of great plans and ideas in the community. And so what we really want to do is bring together the people who have developed those plans and come to the table and invite a few additional stakeholders who may not have been part of those conversations and really tease out what are the things that really combined into one vision we could leverage each other's efforts, help each other be more successful in achieving our goals quickly, and really try to elevate the profile of some of our community goals across the whole county so that we really feel like we're all pulling in the same direction and working towards the same vision. We're putting our consulting team together to help us right now, but within the next few weeks, we're going to start to identify sort of what kinds of focus groups, how we're going to organize ourselves around conversations specific to different industries or sectors or issues. And it would be really helpful for us if you could start thinking about the people in your communities who have been a part of these processes in the past, who have an interest in these things or are a commonly referred to voice in these things, and also those folks who maybe have some great thoughts, but haven't always been brought to the table. And what we'd like to do is come back to you guys in a month or so, let you know how this process will work out, and have a little more detailed conversation about how you can engage. We just want to introduce you to the fact that this is happening over the course of this summer now. Put that in the back of your minds and ask for you guys to be willing to kind of cooperate with us and help us make sure that we really do reach the furthest corners of the county and bring all the voices to the table to have a really comprehensive understanding of where we can go and what opportunities we have in the months and years ahead.
Thanks, Grant, and thanks, Nicole. Any questions for MEP, either Grant or Nicole? Tom.
Well, as being up in one of the corners of the county, a question I have is those of us on the council that know a lot of folks around here, you run into people that say, well, gee, there's a business for sale, might be interested in that, or there's, empty space, and we have a bit up this way. I might be interested in leasing it. And of course, we know the local financial folks, but the question tends to be, like market size, what is it, universal addressable market, all this data that it's kind of hard to have up here. But if somebody wants to open a business or, lease a space and open a business, could they come to you for something like that?
Absolutely. So, and I'll just be honest, we're not going to have the expertise to help every single person with their idea around a business, but we have a great team in place around the county. So we have partners at the university, partners at the county, partners at the city, partner in other private sector nonprofits. So what we do in that instance is we sit down with that person who has an idea, understand sort of what their goals are. And in fact, a great example is someone came to us about 6 weeks ago with an idea to start a business here in Missoula. They just knew they wanted to do this thing that they cared about, and they saw a vacant space and they said, where do I get started? And we didn't have the expertise for the exact thing they wanted to do, but we built a little team, put those people sort of in a room with this person. And I just got a text from this woman yesterday that she's moving forward on the business. She's signing a lease this week and she's ready to get started. So that's exactly what we do, and we don't pretend to be experts in every field, but we kind of know what resources are available to support people, and where we don't have the answers, we can put them in touch with the folks that do. And where we do have the answers, we're happy to give them to them freely and as quickly as we can.
No, that's great. That's good, because so much of it, well, go ask so-and-so. Well, so-and-so may not know, but it'll be good. We can come to you. Great. Thanks for that.
Yep.
Thanks, Tom. Other questions out there? Anyone else? And it sounds like Grant and Nicole and team will be back with us at some point in the future also to touch bases again. So
well, thanks again, Commissioner Strohmeyer, for the invitation to participate, and please don't hesitate to email or call us if you have an idea or you want more information about some of the stuff we've discussed. Thanks.
Yes, MissoulaPartnership.com or info@MissoulaPartnership.com. All right. Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Nicole. Come back anytime. All right, next, let's hear a little bit about some of the grant fund opportunities in the next fiscal year coming up. Kayla or Nancy?
All right. Good evening. This is Nancy Rattel, and I will be joined by my colleague, Kayla Talbert. We are both grants administrators in the Grants and Community Programs Division within Community and Planning Services Department. And I tell you, I am so excited because I'm going to ride the wave of Dave's enthusiasm for positive energy and activities, and then what Grant and Nicole talked about. So my topic, and Kayla, is about grant opportunities. I mean, and who doesn't like chasing the money, right? So that's why I'm here to talk about. Have to get my hands up so I can talk. 3 topics that I'll be covering. One is just first an introduction to the these 2 county funds that will be available, and then the fund that I manage is called the Community Assistance Fund, and then Kayla will speak about the Substance Abuse Prevention Funds. So these are both grant opportunities that Missoula County brings forth on an annual basis in the spring. And what it is, communities, the nonprofits or governmental agencies apply for these funding opportunities. And it's a competitive application process. And I want to mention that because what does that mean? And the beauty of that is that we have a review committee for each of these funds. There's a review committee of a commissioner and also some citizens that score the applications that are submitted based upon a criteria that is included in what we call the NOFA. For government, we have to have an acronym, right? So it's NOFA, which is the Notice of Funding Availability. So if you hear me talk about the NOFA, which is a segue into, yes, the NOFAs for both of these grant opportunities will be released on Tuesday, March 30th at 9 o'clock. Kayla is going to put in the chat the URL, the link to the website where you can go to that, and then there'll be a link to the Community Assistance Fund or the Substance Abuse Prevention Mill Levy grant opportunity. But so it's missoulacountY.us/funding opportunities. Kayla will put that in. It's also being published, this notice is being published in the Pathfinder tomorrow and the following week, as well as Missoulian. So I just feel it's really important. So it's just like, yeah, great, grant funds. Now, how do I learn more? So that's what you would first do, is starting next Tuesday, March 30th, nonprofits and governmental entities go to this site where you can learn what is the purpose of these funds, which we'll go into more detail. So it opens March 30th. The deadline is May 12th, about 6 weeks. So that's the process. You will see what's the purpose of each fund, the scoring, how things are scored, and then again, after the deadline, the Citizens Review Committee reads all of those applications, scores them, so there's a quantitative basis upon which decisions are made. Then in June, the Review Committee ranks the applications and brings forward to the Board of County Commissioners recommendations. Again, it's just recommendations because, heavens to Betsy, we don't know what the budgets will be for fiscal year 22, but at least what I'm trying to convey is that this is a thorough process that applicants go through based upon the needs that are presented based upon the funding. So I hope that I'm just trying to do time frame, how you can get more info. So I'll talk about the fund that I manage, which is the Community Assistance Fund, again, acronym CAF, C-A-F. And that fund has been around, another colleague did some research, honest to gum, back in 1877, the Montana legislative, before we were even a state, had set up assistance for those who, they call it the poor fund, needed some poor fund. But here's the gist. It's the Community Assistance Fund is for the basic human services that are needed: food, shelter, medical services, and emergency transportation. So, any kind of agency, nonprofit that would like to, that sees a need that would like some funding for that, it's food, shelter, health services, and emergency transportation. Typically, we get 18 to 20 applications. Again, it's competitive, and around $806,000 is granted to these agencies. And I just want to, I tell the commissioners, this is such a favorite fund of mine because it makes so much difference in people's lives. It is about basic needs. So for example, many of you in your communities are familiar with aging services, right? The Meals on Wheels. Well, this fund helps with the Meals on Wheels to those that are under age 65. Then we have the Garden City Harvest that does, food, that has food and then distributes it. I'm thinking we have the Watson's Children Shelter. So something that I also mentioned to the commissioners is honestly that the population that is served literally start at the little babies, Watson's Children Shelter, through the youth homes, all the way up to the elderly. So I don't want to belabor this, but I did want to talk about the general, how you can find more information, a little bit about the Community Assistance Fund itself, and then I'll turn it over to Kayla, and then if you have any questions, we can visit, but I don't want to hog the camera.
Thanks, Nancy. Kayla?
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. So the fund that I help manage, which will also open this next Tuesday and close on May 12th, just like the CAF fund, is the Substance Abuse Prevention Mill Levy. This is a voter-approved mill levy that was approved in 2008, and the purpose of the mill levy is to support activities that prevent substance misuse among youth in the county, and then also just help grow healthy youth and reduce the negative consequences and high costs of substance misuse. So this fund has also been around for quite some time, and a lot of the projects that we see support after school activities and other things for young youth to do that would help them steer away from substance use. And then you can find more information at the same website, the MissoulaCounty.us/funding opportunities, and that will be open on Tuesday. So that's it for me, and if there's questions, feel free to ask.
Thanks, Kayla. Any questions from folks for either Kayla or Nancy? Well, this is one of these hidden little gems of a division of Missoula County that does a whole lot of work and shows a great return on investment. So thanks, Nancy, thanks Kayla for your work in grants, and any questions for them?
Okay, well, please reach out.
All right, thanks so much. Right, just a couple more things here to wrap it up today. First off, an announcement regarding board training. Kyla, do you want to say any words about this? Well, there he is. There's the board trainer, Dan Clark.
Yes. I was just getting it pulled up. Sorry. I just wanted to do a little plug here for our board training that's coming up with Dan Clark. His training is always well received. He has great information, so we encourage every board member who either has attended or hasn't attended it in the past. We really try to get board members to attend at least one training a year just to keep up with all the changes and anything that might come up board related. So it's Wednesday, April 7th from 6 to 8:30. It's a virtual WebEx. There's really not much limit, so we're not worried about participant limit. We have up to 200 available. I have sent out that information, and we'll send it out again as it gets closer to this April 7th date. But if just wanted to put that plug back in there and remind people that we're really interested in doing this. The other little bit that I wanted to chat about quickly was just that since I've been taking over boards, we've really been trying to track board training for all members of the different boards that they serve on. So I will be also sending out a board certification, just saying that if you did attend this, that you did attend it, so we can track it on your board profile, just so we can kind of have a better track record of who has attended and hasn't attended previous and current trainings. If there's any questions, you can certainly ask.
Thanks, Kyla. And these really are good sessions, even if you've been through one of Dan's board training sessions previously. I always learn something new in attending these. Any questions?
I think Rick has his hand up.
I'm the newcomer to this whole thing, so I just went through the training about a month ago. Should I go through this as well? Would you suggest it?
I think I would say a month is probably don't need to do it again quite yet, but I would certainly not dissuade you if you so chose. So, and Lee Bridges, thanks, Rick.
I want to thank Dan Clark for putting this on. I will put this out to my board members. Lisa Thomas, I think you're still on here, and I have her to thank for catching me on one of our recent board meetings when I might have overstepped my grounds. So I'm definitely going to be taking this on April 7th, and will encourage my board members on the East Missoula Community Council to do so as well.
Great.
Thank
Thanks, Lee. Any other questions for Kyla right now or comments about board training? Okay. Well, let's just spend a little bit of our final time together doing a bit of a round robin, a little bit of a tour across Missoula County and the community councils who are represented here. And if folks want to chime in and let us know what you're up to, I'll call out your community council and you can either jump in and fill us in on any happenings or not. And I guess I'll just start by wanting to recognize that since the last time we gathered up, a good friend of ours, Klaus von Stutterheim, passed away. And Klaus, I think we might have even mentioned, I can't remember if we mentioned at our last meeting that we did proclaim a day last month as Klaus von Stutterheim Day to recognize the really significant work that he's done in the Seeley Lake Community Council over the years. He was, in my estimation, a model for all of us to emulate in terms of public service. So a shout out to Klaus, and we are keeping his family in our thoughts. So let's begin up in the northeast corner of Missoula County. Is there anyone from the Swan here?
Yeah, they're all Republicans.
Who is that?
Shh.
Okay, maybe not the Swan, but I'm looking at someone from Seeley.
Hey, Dave, this is Tom. There are actually three of us on. Doug Anderson and Sharon Tagg, our new member. And we really appreciate the kind words you said about Klaus because he's such an inspiration for all of us. We do have our April meeting coming up. Obviously up here, we're looking forward to the tourist season because there've been some changes in, like, our motels now they're not in commission, and our good friend Quinn Carver, the ranger up here who always joins our council meetings, has said they're expecting another very heavy summer of tourists. So any flat spot in public land will probably be occupied. So it's an exciting time, and we probably will be calling on you, or I think Nick was on earlier for our meetings, just because once the wave of tourists comes in, it's going to be wild for the next few months. That's what's happening up here.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else from Seeley?
Yeah, I've got a quick one, and thanks, Dave, for the words about Klaus. It's appreciated. But do you know what the Missoula County is getting in as far as federal stimulus money, and do you have anything earmarked for that or any ideas?
We've got lots of ideas. The challenge that we're facing right now is, and I should say that by what we've heard thus far, it's looking like Missoula County will be the recipient of $23 million. And the federal rules that will determine how that money can be spent are still being written by U.S. Department of Treasury. So it's uncertain as of this moment exactly how we can put those funds to use, but I will let either of my colleagues jump in. There's any number of ways in which we've identified important priorities across Missoula County, either in response to the pandemic or addressing some of the ancillary challenges related to COVID-19 that we would love to invest in. Josh or Juanita?
Sure, thanks. I don't have anything to say about specific projects yet. I think Dave's hitting the nail on the head in that we have yet to learn the parameters by which we could spend the money. All I really wanted to add is that there's also money that the federal government has given to the state. The state is supposed to allocate out to counties, and we're waiting on details on that as well. There have been some little bits of darkness around that. There are some legislators out there that don't want to allocate any of this nearly $1 billion to counties that have COVID restrictions that are stricter than the governor's. which seems quite ridiculous. But I know that's been talked about. Nothing's official yet, but I think it's worthy of note and letting people know out there. I personally think this is a really bad idea because all the counties in the state are very different. We have some counties with no COVID, and then we have counties like ours that Cindy Farr described, where we have variants that are quite dangerous. And the race is on, and these types of counties should not be treated the same way. One size does not fit all. Hopefully, the legislators who wish this won't prevail, but this debate is ongoing, and I think it's worthwhile for all of you, if you're interested, to pay close attention and speak your mind to your legislators who will have a say in this.
And we have been asked by some of our legislators to assemble a list of possible projects for that state pot of money, and this would run the gamut from municipal water projects to wastewater projects, to broadband, other sorts of infrastructure. So we assembled a list of about $130 million of potential projects in Missoula County that we would be more than happy to help the state of Montana spend.
There was also some question of match on here that has yet to be decided. How much match the state was going to require? Would they give us $1 for every dollar we would pledge to spend on a project, 1-to-1, or would it be 2-to-1 or 10%? Or it's a wide range. Typically, with these giant infrastructure projects, the required match, if we were getting money straight from the federal government, would be quite low, 10, 13%, because the projects are gigantic. It seems, hearing from the legislators at the state, that they don't have a lot of experience with projects on this scale, and they have to figure out what the match will be. Seems like they have a lot to figure out yet.
We're shooting for zero match, ideally.
I mean, we send them projects that we would love to see, but that are not in our budget because they are too big. Things like that, yeah.
No, go ahead, Josh. Keep going.
I was going to say things like that water line in Lolo that connect the east and west side of the railroad tracks. That just giant projects that also have giant impact, but we just don't have the millions lying around to make it happen.
I was going to ask Chris or Ann if we had any idea of when Treasury would come out with more information. Do we have an idea timeline?
Or the state on their money.
Yeah. Chris or Ann, any scuttlebutt?
Yeah, I wish I had some. So the state is continuing to have hearings almost every day around their piece, but I have not heard a peep from Treasury or any hints from NACO or MACO about when the guidance will come out for counties.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Doug, for that question.
You bet. Thank you.
Order report. Hopefully at next month's meeting we'll have some more definitive answers. Well, let's continue with our round robin here at the county. Lest we burn too much of the midnight oil. So how about Bonner Milltown Community Council?
I'll start that one, and I'm sure Emily or Rick might have something to add to it, but these meetings are valuable to us. I just found out tonight that we had a new business in the Bonner Mill. I think that's what the MEP told us. Dave, you've been around long enough. I've been fighting this one for years to find out before things happen if we can find something about businesses coming to Bonner, but gave up on that a couple of years ago.
Botany Soap has been there a while. Is that the one you're thinking of?
Is that what it is? Yeah.
They've been out there a while, Bert, quite a while. This was just a new grant they got. This isn't them moving there for the first time.
Had no idea they were there. Like I said, I gave up on it a couple of years ago, so trying to keep up with it was a bear. But these meetings are valuable. They really are, and I appreciate you guys going from annual to monthly. Thanks.
Thanks, Bert. Anyone else from Bonner Milltown? Rick.
Since I have you all here, maybe I could ask a quick question. I was talking with someone from East Missoula Community Council, and can we put notice of our meetings up on Nextdoor? We're Nextdoor members. It's a neighborhood sort of a bulletin board. You have to be verified. It's a good way to get people to know about the meetings, but it is a public notice, so I'd have to ask if it's legal or not.
I think you can put notices up wherever you want.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
I think it says,
Fully public, more people better.
It says in our bylaws, we're supposed to do it on, service stations, grocery stores, libraries, whatever we got, put notices up. I don't see any reason we can't do it on neighbor.
Yeah, there's what might be the legal minimum of what you need to do to notice meetings, but beyond that, you can fly an airplane and drag a banner behind it if you want.
That's good. Thank you.
Speaking of bylaws, I do have something else. Where are they?
I will defer to staff. Kyla or Chet?
Yeah, Dave, Bert, we just had those on Monday, actually, to give the commissioners a quick update that it would be coming to one of their admin meetings to finalize those, and then we'll get it out to you all.
Really? All right.
Yep. So I know this is an answer you've been waiting for a while, and I'm happy to deliver it.
A little over 9 months. So thank you.
Well, Chet said it would be coming to an admin meeting. He did not say which year it would be coming. So don't get too excited, Bert.
And I might mention that, there may be amendments to it as soon as it hits the ground, but we'll go for it.
We are all about amending bylaws. We can't get enough of that. Anyone else? Bonner Milltown.
I have nothing else just to echo what Bert said. And hi, Rick. Nice to meet you. I'm sorry I missed last month. But yeah, I just find these valuable. The diversity of information that we get that we can pass on to the people around our community is fabulous. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily. How about East Missoula? Lee?
Hi, Rick Hall. I'm happy to meet you. I'm the one that has been corresponding with them about the next door issue. So thanks for clarifying that. I also want to say that we have now got a replacement light, solar light for our sign. It's in my hands. I haven't gotten to getting it up yet. I'm going to try and recruit somebody to give me a hand with that. We are continuing our meetings virtually, and we'll do so for April and May. We do not meet over the summer, as most of you know. September, we'll just have to see where we are with the COVID thing. I can't say whether we'll be virtual then or not, but until everybody's vaccinated, I plan on keeping these virtually. So we'll go from there. And I want to echo everything Bert says. It's great. He saves me the time. I don't have to repeat everything he said, but thank you so much for these monthly meetings virtually like they are. They're great. I get a lot out of them.
Thanks, Lee. Lisa, you just threw up your hand there.
Yeah, I just want to, I had a question actually for community councils and how we may support residents that are near problem housing with the housing authority. We have a place out here in East Missoula that the cops are kind of frequent flyers to, with a lot of different activity going on, not to get into it, but how might the community council support our residents in dealing with the housing authority? Where our advocacy work might be appropriate or not, something like that kind of guidance.
So I'm very familiar with what you're talking about, Lisa. I have made at least a couple calls last week to both the housing authority and also to the city county health department due to reports of one of the properties, housing authority properties in East Missoula. The health department also said that they would reach out to the housing authority. I've not heard back what action is being taken, but you and your fellow East Missoulians' concerns have been relayed to them. I think it would be appropriate to, well, I mean, if others within the community council are hearing things that are in a similar vein. I think folks reaching out directly to the Housing Authority is probably not a bad idea.
Okay. So a community council letter we would discuss at a meeting and come to consensus and potentially just write a letter of support to the Housing Authority, or would that be appropriate?
Or you could direct it to the Board of County Commissioners, and we can then
okay.
include that with a letter from the full BCC to the Housing Authority.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Lisa, if you're proposing that, would you get with me in an email and I will put that on our agenda for our next meeting in
Yes,
April?
you've read my mind. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks.
But in addition, I would say any citizen who has an issue, either along the lines of what you're suggesting, Lisa, or anything else, they can certainly, as an individual, reach out directly to the Housing Authority or anyone they want.
That just kind of has not been productive, the individuals. So that's why people have been asking the community council, can you do anything? As maybe a group would have more voice than a single or something, was the thought of the conversation I had.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Unless my colleagues here have any other thoughts. Okay. Thanks, Lisa. Anyone else from East Missoula out there? Well, let's slip on down to Lolo. Kevin.
Hey, everybody. I just want to thank you, county commissioners, for having this, echo what's been said before. It's nice to see what's happening virtually around the county and help us all feel connected as a whole. We've just been hit and miss with our meetings as needed. It's just kind of quiet down here, holding our own, trying to hold steady. But yeah, we're happy to be here. Thank you.
Hey, Kevin, I wanted to say I appreciated your questions in those community meetings as well. I tried to email you back right in the moment and say thanks for that good question, but I couldn't find your email, and then I got sucked back into listening. But I really appreciated your participation.
Yeah, hey, that was another thing I forgot. Thank you for allowing myself and the rest of us to participate in that. It helps us buy into the county and be part of the whole.
Yeah, well, what you guys have to say is meaningful.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Anyone else from Lolo on the line tonight? How about West Valley out Frenchtown way? And I'm just going to throw a Hail Mary here. Is there anyone from Evero, Findlay, O'Keefe out there? One of these days we'll get lucky. But
I see Dan Sari. Isn't Dan up in Condon?
Do we have anyone in the Swan who wants to speak?
No,
nope.
I don't. I was a mistake. I was scrolled too far down. He's not on this particular call. Sorry, my mistake.
Well, his loss. Anything else from anyone or from the other two commissioners? Josh or Juanita, anything you want to add?
No, I was just going to say thanks to everybody who participated in those community meetings with the health board candidates. They were great. I sat in on all of those conversations, and they were robust and thoughtful, and feel like we got a lot of really good information, and that's because people participated. So thanks for that.
Dan, sorry, his hand just went up. I wasn't making that up.
We got a ton of hands flying up. First, though, I think Rick had his hand up first. So, Rick?
Well, I just wanted to echo what everyone said about the commissioners taking the time with us. I served in another county on a planning and zoning commission for 6 years. I met the commissioners when I went to my interview and 2 other times in 6 years. So thank you very much for being available for us and keeping us all connected. So
thanks, Rick.
Well,
Dan.
thanks.
Looks like you're muted, Dan. There we go. Go ahead, Dan. You're unmuted, but we cannot hear you. Oh, you're muted again.
His system may be muted. Not just Teams.
Yeah, yeah.
Does it,
well,
does he have to dial something? Does he have to dial *6 or no?
He's on his computer, so.
Okay.
Well, Dan, while you're figuring that out, Tom.
Just a quick question. I saw something recently that somewhere in the feds, maybe Department of Commerce, they're looking at changing the definition for a metropolitan statistical area from 100,000, 50,000 core to 100. Is that something that we should stress about?
Yes, that's a big deal, particularly for the city of Missoula, where that could severely impact. Right now, the city of Missoula is an entitlement community, so it gets funds directly from the federal government for community development block grants and such. Otherwise, if they lose that status, it's going to be a more convoluted and bureaucratic process to access funds, probably through this funneled through the state of Montana. So it's something that we hope will not happen. I know I saw a press release recently from Senator Daines, who was pushing back on this proposed rule. Excuse me, Josh, or we need anything to add?
No, I mean, I don't know that it would affect much in Sealy, but it'd be a really big deal for the city. You're totally right, Dave. They would lose a direct line to quite a bit of money. And the city of Missoula has a pretty great history of using CDBG funds to do all kinds of fantastic, great community work, the sort of things that Nancy Rattell was describing around what the county does. So it would be a rough thing for the city, and we sure hope that doesn't happen.
Well, in a similar vein, we're so thankful that we are, through this most recent Relief Act, able to access funds directly from the federal government without it running through the state of Montana, which just adds another bureaucratic layer that doesn't always deliver the best results for our constituents here. Dan, are you back with us yet? Well, that's a bummer. Dan, if you wanted to type something into the chat, maybe we could answer a question that way. Otherwise,
you can shoot us an email too.
You can always shoot us an email or give us a phone call.
bcc@missoulacounty.us.
Well, anything else from anyone? We have managed to burn through an hour and a half pretty easily tonight. So sorry, Dan, that we're not able to hear you tonight, but maybe next time. Okay, well, I guess if there's nothing else. Yeah.
Dave, all I was going to say is I was supposed to chat with Bert after this. Bert, you want to just stay on here and we can talk that way, then we don't have to start up again?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dave. Start that.
Nope, that's fine. It looks like it's the Bert Caldwell, Josh Slotnick show from here on out. So everyone have a great night, a great rest of the month. We'll see